Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to a pre-release impressions video. Yeah, we don't get too many of those here, but we got one today. Uh,
This is
Control.
indeed
So,
weirder
um,
than usual.
this is a game that's been on my radar entirely because I saw like 20 seconds of it at an E3 or after an E3 at some point in the past few years, and it's stuck in my brain for reasons I couldn't even remember until I got like an hour into the game. Uh, at first, I kind of thought it was going to be a bland, like, third-person shooter for a little while because they do start you off with a gun here,
You
and for
always
a
grab the
short time
goofy
at the
thing.
beginning, that's all you have to fight with.
It's just
But,
this.
yeah, this is a
Getting my
game
hopes up.
about having Jedi powers.
So many things this led to this
Nice.
point.
It's also got a pretty intriguing premise, although it's really, really vague in the beginning hours, and I questioned several times whether or not it might be one of those artsy-fartsy games that makes your character literally insane and the entire game
There's
is
a
some, like,
poster on the
crappy
wall.
hallucination, like, Spec Ops: The
You
Line,
stare at it and you
um,
think that's the
or like,
whole world.
what's that game called?
The
The
room,
one Ninja
and
Theory
the
put out.
poster.
Um,
Yeah.
The picture's
Regardless.
really nice.
Senua, that's it,
A
Senua,
landscape
right.
of a
Ah.
famous
No,
person.
Senua, is it?
Like,
This is a very 70s looking building.
what is it called?
Right.
The prison
Yeah,
movie.
it kind of is actually. When you go through the building, you find like
And the
there's a lot
picture,
of
it's
archaic
different. For each
technology,
of us, it can be
like
beautiful
Ah.
or
old,
terrible.
old like computers that have like entirely green monochrome screens,
But it's
typewriters
all
at the
a lie.
desks, that kind of
Something to
thing.
distract us
Oh,
from
is
the
it one of those we
truth.
don't want anyone having access to our
They
information sort of
lying
thing?
to us.
Maybe. I'm
They
not really sure
lied
about the
to
world
ourselves.
outside this
The
area
room's not the
because,
world. The world
well,
is
I only
much
ask
bigger,
because
much
I know that's
stranger.
something that, as a slight tangent, I know that's something Batman does to make sure Cyborg doesn't have access to all of his
Hidden
stuff if he
behind
decides to,
those
use his
threatening
technology
monsters
powers on the
we
internet and
avoid.
stuff.
They always say something.
Okay. Yeah, they do have
But
actually,
sometimes,
like at the beginning of the game, there's a notice
something
by the
calls
security
out
desk
from
that
behind the
like
poster.
smartphones are prohibited, smartwatches are
Someone thinks
prohibited,
he's
anything
happy.
smart is
So look
prohibited,
out. They're trying to
and
figure out how to listen.
It's almost like it's trying to tell you something.
uh,
I'm here.
but anyway, okay. So the premise for this game is
Why
that
did you
there's this
bring me
building
here?
called the Oldest House is somewhere in New York. And you come here investigating because of something that happened in your childhood. You're Jesse Faden or something. That's her name. And you're here to find out what happened in your childhood and where your brother is and all of that. The Federal Bureau of Control is this super shady organization that apparently experiments with objects of
Thanks.
power,
Elevator that way.
strange objects
Got
that
it.
have paranormal abilities. The first thing you find is a gun that's alive. It doesn't talk to you or anything. It's just a gun that's alive, and apparently being chosen by this gun, or choosing to be chosen by this gun, I have no idea what's going on. Makes you the director of the entire bureau. I don't get it. But,
Oh, so a modern day Excalibur.
Enough
Instead of a
for
sword, it's a
chip on
gun.
a drive that makes us
yeah.
get off weird.
So,
Lottie the janitor is
the
trying to
janitor just
fix
lets you
something.
in, even though you find out later on that the entire building is in lockdown because there's some really bad supernatural shit happening in here.
But that's
So,
Well, it's funny, we were coming up on him. I was expecting him to just awkwardly, slowly kind of turn around the longest possible way and then just yell at us in Spanish.
I kind of suspect that the janitor is Izanami in disguise or something.
The janitor is God.
Yeah, that's what I said. In any case, yeah. So you progress through the place. Thankfully, they allow you to run through the opening walkie-talkie intro, which is an upgrade from what this gen has been doing for the past like 200 games. But yeah. So you go to the director's office and you find him dead, and it looks like a suicide. And apparently, you have some sort of ghost talking in your head. So I guess we're getting beyond two souls up in this bitch here, and yeah, there's some weird computer talking to you,
And
and
there goes the poster.
and then the game decides to remind me very heavily of Myst by having these live-action video segments.
It also goes out of its way to remind you of Persona 3 a lot by having your character point the gun to their head.
Oh, that only happens at the beginning, and apparently it's like mimicking whatever this guy did to himself. I have no idea what's going on in the beginning, and I get the feeling that I'd have to play the game through to the end to get what's going on in the beginning, but there's a lot of stuff going on with the story even early on. There's like a bajillion documents and audio files and videos to find as you explore. So even though it's a fairly linear game, there's quite a bit going on. It kind of reminds me a little bit about Remember Me, but like already this game is more memorable to me than Remember Me, so
Oh my god, we're at the monolith on the moon.
Oh yeah, and like these are like these sort of astral projection visions that happen in your head when you find objects of power. It's kind of like that thing that happens in DMC Devil May Cry, where every time you get like a new power, you have to do this like this sort of like mini stage outside of a statue thing.
Okay, I want to get in her head, and if you like, wow, I'm in a Mario level.
It kind of is. Or like
Or
like the virtual reality obstacle courses in Assassin's Creed 2.
Mario's more fun.
I thought I could climb up there, but no, I can't.
No.
Sad face.
It looks like you could, but game.
Yeah.
Hey, look, my first Goomba gonna jump on your head.
And there's no explanation for why, but you open up the game with a telekinetic palm smash melee attack, which is actually really cool. Okay, so since this game starts out all over the shoulder and stuff and has a gun, you might expect that maybe you have regenerating health. Nope! Instead, we're doing this kind of Doom 2016 style where the enemies drop health. And like,
yeah, I prefer that to just regen.
Yeah, so you're encouraged to break cover every so often and run up and get those little blue glowing health things that the enemies drop when they get hit. But they don't give you all that much health, so you gotta be smart about it. The game is fairly hard at the beginning when you just have the gun, although when you start getting telekinetic powers and you get more options, the difficulty sort of evens out, I would say. So, but you know, be careful because you die fast.
I noticed that you don't really have ammo, but you kind of have a charge meter at the bottom there.
Yeah, the service weapon which is its official name is. The service weapon regenerates ammo when you're not shooting. So you can go hog wild with it, but you'll run out of ammo fairly quickly. So it's better to use it as a supplement to your telekinetic powers rather than relying mainly on the gun. You can rely mainly on the gun, but it doesn't do all that much damage compared to, say, levitating a computer panel and throwing it at the enemy.
Boom, headshot.
You can fire the gun without going into like over-the-shoulder aiming mode, but I didn't realize that until a little bit later, so you're not seeing it happen here. That's a good way to mix in gunplay with your telekinetic powers, though. If it looks like I have no skill aiming whatsoever, it's because I'm playing with a PS4 controller, and I turned aim assist off like an idiot. So I'm a little imprecise right now. I don't know why, but I'm neurotic about playing games without aim assist on. If I go into the menu and I see it has an aim assist option, I always turn it off. And I have no idea why I do, because I suck at shooter games.
I was gonna say, is it because you feel Netflix is insulting you or something?
I don't know. It just feels like I don't want it. I don't have a rational reason for that. I just don't want it.
Boop.
When I saw that the game was going in for this close over-the-shoulder perspective, I thought the controls would be really weighty, but it's not. Your control is rather freeform here. I imagine this would be a fun game to play with a keyboard and mouse, if that's your thing. But I'm playing it on a PS4 Pro, which brings me to the performance issues, which aren't many. The game seems to play mostly smooth, but like if you walk up to a painting in the environment and try to look at it, there's going to be a few seconds where the painting is pretty low res, and then the high res texture pops in. And it happened pretty much every time I walked up to a painting, even on my PS4 Pro. So, yeah, that's a thing. The environments are quite pretty, so it's unfortunate.
This game is giving me massive 80s sci-fi vibes.
Yeah, it does kind of have that feel, doesn't it? It's a very trippy kind of game. The one thing I can absolutely compliment is the facial features, because the facial animation, apart from a few, like, really fleeting Uncanny Valley moments here and there, is really, really good. It's one of those games where, like, they obviously have, like, some real-life actor doing like really specific facial animations. One thing that I will say is like every face that I've seen so far has its own unique personality, its little ticks to how it moves. Like one character's like really, really unnecessarily smiley. Your main character has like these really contemplative expressions that go on because she's that kind of quiet person. And then there was the janitor whose mouth sort of quivers every so often, which gave him a creepy feeling. I think they mixed in some actual live action images of the actress whose face they scanned in that. Yeah. Because the faces are so realistic, it's not overly jarring when they do the live action videos for like the informational videos about your powers and stuff, which I really like. It's cool that they can mix in like live action footage with in-game graphics and have it like not be absurdly jarring. It feels like we finally reached that place that everyone wanted to be during the Sega CD era.
Just shoot it, Fox.
Yeah, the combat doesn't really start to get fun until you get like Silver the Hedgehog powers. But once you do get the Silver the Hedgehog powers, it's game time. And I will say, like, I was turned off initially because I thought this would be one of those low gameplay, artsy games that doesn't really have much going for it mechanically because it's so focused on being a movie. Nope. It is quite challenging actually, and there are no difficulty modes, which surprised me. I don't think I saw any difficulty modes anyway. There was no easy mode, normal mode, hard mode. It was just baseline, and the baseline kills you like that if you let your guard down. So be careful. It's not super hard because once you have the telekinetic powers, you can dish out damage pretty quick, but it's easy to die. It's one of those. The game handles checkpoints in a fairly generous way, though. I mean, you get knocked back a fair distance when you die, but it also seems like every enemy you killed along the way stays dead, and everything you found along the way stays with you, so it's more like a respawn than a checkpoint, if that makes sense. So you really have to redo things.
The oldest house doesn't like attention.
Well, that's good. Although at that point, you almost wonder why they just don't let you respawn where you died, but whatever.
Yeah, it's kind of annoying. You die and you just have to make your way back to where you died. And fight the enemies that killed you. Only now you have a full health bar instead of like the 1/3 health bar you went into that battle with. But yeah, I died a few times while recording this, but It usually just meant I was going into the battle with more of an advantage than I had when I went in. So, yeah. I like how when you shoot without going into over-the-shoulder aiming, like the character does a one-handed sort of cool bam, bam, bam. Makes it feel dynamic when you transition in from like throwing a desk at someone to pulling out your handgun to finish off the last sliver of health. Gives you a cool feeling.
Action movie star.
I will say I like the main character too. I wasn't expecting to, which might sound odd coming from me, because by appearances she seems fairly generic, and her personality has that thinks a lot, says very little thing that made like the Hunger Games movie kind of boring, because everything that happened with Katniss Everdeen happened in her head, so her just being a blank slate the entire time made her kind of a boring character in that movie. But this game goes into the character's head pretty pretty often. I forgot about this. The first object of power, the one you pick up to get your telekinetic powers, is a replica of a floppy disk that had nuclear codes. It's a replica.
Don't copy that floppy. Don't copy that floppy.
It is a copy of the floppy. And I don't even think it has the nuclear codes on it, but apparently because it's a replica that's so tied in the collective unconscious to the actual disk that had the nuclear codes on it during the Cold War, it developed telekinetic powers. And this goober's talking about how we use this to throw a few pencils and a cup across the room. Yeah, right. Let's see what I can throw.
So these guys are effectively less malevolent aperture science.
Yeah, I suppose. I mean, I suppose aperture science if it wasn't run by a frickin' psychopath, if it was government controlled, and if you showed up while there were still people alive, and if magic was involved.
Communications. We're on the right track.
I mean, sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from some magic.
Yeah, and there's a lot of environmental storytelling going on, and a lot of documents you can find that build the world up in really peripheral ways. It's one of the things that makes video game storytelling really well, and I'm glad they capitalized on it here, in ways that don't necessarily involve an open world. I like to see that kind of storytelling going on. Um, the beginning also doesn't last too long before the actual gameplay starts. When the um, when it started and I was exploring and I spent the first section just fighting a few people with guns and talking to people, I thought that was going to go on for quite a while, establishing things. But once you're into mission 2, it becomes fairly gameplay focused. So that happens early on.
Now, is it very level by level, or is it kind of just a long sequence of a single game, but it just tells you you're in a new mission?
It just tells you that you're in a new mission via quest list. You're exploring this building,
Gotcha.
and you can backtrack wherever you want, and you eventually will have to because you find like clearance cards that open locked doors into other areas and stuff. I'm not sure.
Okay.
I'm not sure how much the exploration factor. Just this random guy who was still alive 2 seconds ago got killed by the telekinetic disc, which has been possessed by an evil spirit of some kind.
Object of power. Like the hiss of last giant. We need to
So the telekinetic disc got possessed by the hiss, which is the malevolent force that is spawning in all these monsters, and possessing people and all of that. For some reason, you're immune, and people who are wearing these special devices were immune. And there's some mystery about the guy who made those devices, and
By devices, you mean like the lady we saw
yeah,
earlier?
and she says like he must have known something was about to happen because he just handed out these devices out of the blue. Even though whenever he comes up with a new invention, he likes to make this big production out of it and do like a presentation and stuff. But no, this time he just handed everything out, and then a few days later this happened. So it's like, what could he have known? You know?
He must. Well, if magic is involved, premonition or something.
Well, I don't think people are magic. They just have objects of power that cause altered reality.
Well, yeah,
effects.
like an object of power did it.
Yeah, and like the building that they've situated their laboratories in is the oldest house, which is itself a place of power that shifts around at random.
I need the first floppy of Doom for 3.1.
So, the Silver the Hedgehog powers, the Jedi telekinesis, is actually really good. There's a lot of objects in the environment that can be used in this way. Some of them obvious, some of them not so obvious. Like, you can pick up a computer monitor and throw it, sure. You can also rip the back panel of a large computer console off and throw that. They're all helpfully highlighted, of course. So...
Well, they'd have to be, or else you wouldn't know what we could deal with or not.
yeah. But you can also grab things from quite far away, and it will zip straight over to you, and then you can throw it at whatever you're aiming at. Just be careful about what direction you're aiming from, because sometimes objects that you throw can get caught on the environment and not even hit their target and all of that. Yeah, and it happens fairly frequently with me, so you gotta be careful about what you throw and where. You can't be mindless about it.
Put the box in the hole.
And I'm like, are we going to be doing one of these VR vision quests every goddamn time we find an upgrade?
You got the slightly stronger telekinesis, which tutorial time.
I know you get other telekinetic powers as you go through the game, like I think you get the ability to fly or hover or something, but I've only gotten up to mission 2 so far. The only one I've tested out is the telekinetic power.
Oh yeah, you just one-shot them if you hit them well enough.
Yeah, well, they have more health later, so not all of them can be
Okay.
one-shot. But a lot of the enemies in this beginning section, like you can take down half their health with a well-placed throw and then pull out your gun and shoot them a few times and kill them that way. It's a lot faster than it would be if you were just trying to shoot everything with nothing but the gun. And like they'll stagger when they get hit, so that leaves them vulnerable to a quick gunshot if you're fast enough. So it pays to mix and
So
match
you
your
missed.
powers. Yeah, that's what I was talking about.
Now, because this is all kind of like somewhat silly, I imagine like by the end of the game you meet the board and it's actually just like a plank or something, like a literal board.
Plank from Ed, Ed, and Eddie.
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah, you just walk into like the top building, the top floor of the building. It's just Johnny sitting there with Plank. You did it! You beat the evil!
I have no idea where everything is going or even whether this story will be conclusive, but this game did catch my attention for being a pretty interesting looking new IP. So,
Yeah, no, this is looking pretty good to me. I might pick this up.
yeah. As of right now, I think it's coming out.
If only because I love like if only because of I ultimately do enjoy like the 70s and 80s sci-fi feel to everything.
Yeah, it has a pretty unique feel, and it gives me a lot of the same vibes I got from Remember Me, which was a game that I really, really, really wanted to like, but it was a bit mechanically bland to stand up alongside the interesting story concepts it had. I'm pleased to report that this does not seem to be the case with Control. I can't speak for the entirety of the game at this point. Because
Not that we could anyway, because NDAs.
yeah, I can't actually show or say anything past mission 4 at this point, but that's fine because this is mission 2, and I haven't gotten any further than this yet. Oh god damn it! The environment is destructible though. Like you can go up to like at one point there was this railing that I had to jump into to jump over to get into jump down to an area full of enemies, and I accidentally hit the melee button, and she did her telekinetic palm smash on the railing, and it blew the railing off the ledge, which I found that amused me. So if you happen to hit a railing with one of the items you're trying to throw, it won't happen a second time because you will destroy the railing.
That's something, I guess.
Dead.
There you
The
go.
gunplay could be a little bit more impactful than it is. It kind of is like using the infinite handgun from Doom 2016, where it feels more like a low-powered laser gun than a handgun, you know? It doesn't have as much kick as
Yeah.
I'd like it to. The impact on the enemies when it hits isn't quite there. But since the game isn't focused on the gun, I can deal with that. I can deal with it
Yeah.
better than I can in, say, BioShock. I'll say that.
That's fair enough. I mean, it looks like it's still doing a good amount of damage. It's just faster than picking things up and throwing it at them.
Yeah, it's your gun is your fast-hitting, low-damage option, and picking things up is slower but hits harder. So depending on the immediate situation in combat, you're going to be switching between the two, or your other powers, which I'm not sure what I'm not sure what they are at this point. There are videos that show off all of the powers in the game. I think there was like a developer presentation about it. Now, one thing I actually really do like that other games might not necessarily do, apart from like BioShock, is that there are like audio and video files. You know that video presentation? Like we were watching it like on a physical monitor in the game world, right? Which is a cool effect.
Yeah.
But once you've watched it, you can go into your menu and watch the actual video file in a window on your screen, and play that back whenever you want. And the same is true for like radio files, audio recordings, whatever. You can listen to it in the environment, watch it in the environment, and then go into your menu later on and review it. It's not something that you have to like go back to watch.
First boss.
Semi sort of mini boss kind of thing. Like you don't actually finish this guy off here. It's sort of a tutorial to let you know that not like some of the enemies are going to fly. Some of the enemies are going to be so mobile that you can't throw objects at them because they'll just zip out of the way. So you have to use your gun in those situations. But that doesn't mean
Your gun's doing a decent amount of damage.
yeah,
so.
yeah, it is. But that doesn't mean your telekinetic powers is going to be useless in those situations because there are going to be other enemies around that aren't as mobile. So you can pull your telekinetic power out and deal with those real quick, and then switch back to your gun to handle the big bad.
Question: can you fire your gun while you're holding something telekinetic?
I don't think so.
Because I was gonna say one strategy you could do if you could was have something at the ready to throw, shoot them, and stagger them, and then throw something
Yeah.
at them.
Well, I don't think so. It's not something I thought to try. I'll give it a try when I get
Gotcha.
to this game, although I want to beat 3 houses first.
On your
Because
version,
this seems like a game that's gonna suck up my that's like gonna devour my soul for a
you
little
seem
while.
focused.
Oh, you're going to be posting on Twitter about it every couple of hours?
Maybe. I feel like this wouldn't be a good game to do for that because it seems like a lot of the story elements are like subtle, and it's gonna be like you soaking up the world rather.
Gotcha.
There's a certain sort of dark humor to some of the documents and audio files, which I appreciate. It's not all grim darkness. This guy goes on and on about like the official cover-up story for like an object of power that they found inside an embassy that made a lot of people sick. And then he goes on and on about how it was really convenient that that object of power showed up in a U.S. embassy, and that they were lucky, and that they could easily cover it up. And then he's like, "Fuck, are you still recording?"
No. Now, what system starts is coming out for now that the video's done real quick?
Oh, that is a good question. I have it on PS4. I think it might be on Xbox One. Let me, like, very, very quickly actually search that. Control game. Please, Google, don't freak out on me today. Okay, Control video game, Wikipedia, Xbox One, PlayStation 4, Microsoft Windows. There you go. 27th August 2019. Thank you 505 Games for the review code.